So that being said, you know what I think is a good thing to chat about, because it's something that you brought up recently, Cameron, that it made it so clear, the difference with purpose. And I think it was it was on the Friday when we were all talking about it on Friday. And Mitch, you were talking about how people are recognizing in other sales environments that you're the only person that they know that actually lives with principle.
Mhm.
That's fucking epic.
Mhm.
Because what's one of the principles? Visibly living the principles,
Mhm.
Yeah,
right?
it's pretty cool.
This is really cool. So the cool point to acknowledge, because Cameron kind of gave a little perspective on purpose, and it was about, it's not just about finding, because somebody asked some question about how many goals should I set a year. It's like, and then your answer was basically, it's irrelevant how many goals you set a year. You can set one, you can set 10, it doesn't matter. It's just you have purpose, right? And the clarification that Cameron was making from a bigger perspective is, it's not just about, and this is what a lot of people, this is what I interpreted it as when I first heard you have to have like basically a purpose and a burning desire to achieve your purpose. It's like, you don't just pick a purpose. It's not a purpose. You don't have a purpose. What you're here to do, and I was in a Facebook group where somebody was questioning like, what's the deal with purpose? How do you find purpose? You're like, yeah, you got to find a purpose. I'm like, the reason why we're here is to find the purpose. Just like in a video game.
Wait, but find the purpose?
That's for them to find it, which we've already found it.
Right,
Yeah,
to discover
yeah.
it, to discover it, right.
There is the purpose already. You don't have to find it.
To realize it. Yes, that's a great point. Yeah, great.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
It's so cool. You know, it's funny because Katie was talking about today about how it's just one word that somebody will react to, one word that somebody will misguide themselves. And that's what's so cool in this podcast. When we're talking, we're explaining a point that obviously I know that you guys have the context for, but you guys are processing it from, and vice versa. When you guys are speaking about, we're always thinking about it from how are people going to hear this? So it's not like, oh, you have to go search. It's like, you just have to have access to seeing it.
You have to literally listen to what we're saying and do what we're saying. That's it. Like, it's not take what we're saying, go figure something out. No, just do what we're saying. Like, that's it. Somebody can say that's arrogant or this or that, but they're just doing that for themselves anyways. Mm-hmm. It's like if you went to Apple, wouldn't they be like, yes, the purpose is to buy Apple phones and to work at Apple or whatever? Like, they're not going to be like, well, and if they do, they're just doing it as a tactic to relieve a little bit of pressure from the situation.
That's true.
So it's all bullshit. So we don't have to pretend like, you can find a purpose, you can find you have to come to it on your own. Like, well, at the end of the day, you're going to have to integrate it for yourself. So we don't want just to follow us.
Right. It has to come from a point of
following of people who just listen to us.
Right.
People to actually do the points, because we can't, it's like if you're trying to, do anything like plow a field, you need one person to do this part, one person to do that part, one person to do that part. You can't just do all of it on your own. We can't educate every single child ourselves. Their parents should do that. But then how can I talk to all those parents? Not practically possible in the way that's they're actually going to be supported through the process. And same thing for anybody who's getting into a relationship. I was thinking too, as if when you were talking about how people say like, oh, you just got to find a purpose. So, and then they gloss over that part of like, how do you actually do it? But what do people generally say is like, well, you just got to figure out what you're good at, right?
Right.
Passion.
Sometimes they'll say passionate about, there'll be different ways of saying it, but it's sort of like inside of you, there's these clues.
Right.
Mm-hmm. But that's actually the system reinforcing the programming that it put in you based on your location in the system or in this world.
As in a person saying that is the system being like,
it's like the system's coming back going, that little desire you have
that I put inside of you,
something, it's like, that's your purpose because you're so excited about it and you love doing it. That's not a real purpose. Your purpose should be determined by, you look around at the world and you see what's the actual fundamental problems, and then you go to work on those problems. Within that, there can be, okay, I'm suited to this part of solving that problem, or I'm suited to this part of solving that problem. But the purpose everyone should agree on.
Yeah.
I'm saying how you go into it. Like, I'm okay with some people being accountants. Like, we need accountants. According to the rules of the system, you need to have accounting and so forth, right? So I'm not going to tell that person you're wasting your life being an accountant. No, just be an accountant for what we're doing. You know what I'm saying? Like that's
Right.
okay. Some people are going to do that and they're going to have the skill set to do that. You need to learn how to do it, for example.
That's a great example as far as like just in any business at all, you know, especially larger businesses, but any business, that business has a single purpose to make money. Right. And then everyone else within that business, they'll maybe have some specific things that they do, like an accountant or maybe HR or, you know, a lawyer, whatever the fuck it is. Right. But they're all supporting that one purpose. They all are very clear on what that purpose is. And if they're not clear, they are not doing their job well. They're not contributing to the business. Right. And so in life, why would life, well, life is different than like business, but different in the aspect of like it's actual life. Like, you know, it's not just like business in the context that we know it is just part of the system. Life is beyond that system. The system is very limited as far as what it allows and what it brings forth within our thinking and with how we express ourselves and how we contribute to one another, right? But still, that principle remains that there is a single purpose. Why are we all fucking it up? You know, by having like, and having all these different ideas of, oh, I'm gonna do this. Oh, no, I'm gonna do that. Or it's like, you guys are not contributing to life. And it's like the same thing, like any kind of team sport, you know,
Yes,
right?
that's what I was thinking of.
If any one member of that team is not clear on what the objective is and they're not participating, like I use this example, I was talking to somebody, I don't remember, but if you're playing basketball and one of the team members is like, you know, you guys go pass the ball around, you guys are great, whatever. I'm going to go high five all the fans in the stands. That's my purpose, right? Like coach is going to be like, nah, dude, you're out, right?
Well, because there's like the honesty point within it that we need to look at, because so the purpose that we're talking about is doing what's best for all and actually implementing that. But now you'll find people that are like, well, I'm just going to like meditate, or I'm just going to like write, and that's actually best for all. And they'll give their like, you know, bullshit reasoning. Whereas you have to, so within what we're suggesting, you need to then go to, after best for all, realize the next principle is self-honesty. And you need to actually be able to self-honestly say, prove, and live that in a way that thus shows that is verifiable that you're actually doing what's best for all. So like in a business, it would like, or the sports analogy, right? And you have like all the different players on the court, and then one player's like, no, I'm just going to go like high five like all the fans. Like that's what I'm going to do. Like there's not honesty within that of how it's supporting the purpose of the team. But we're just suggesting that there's honesty of the system and perpetuating the system, which is fucked. And then there's self-honesty, real self-honesty of doing what's best for all and investigating that on every level. That is the type of honesty required in looking at this. Otherwise, you're just going to go into some bullshit delusion because you heard Joe Dispenza talking about some meditation and you're like thinking that that's raising the vibration of the planet. In reality, it's like you're just sitting on your ass when every single day 20,000 children are dying from preventable causes, and your love ain't doing shit for that.
Yeah, I like that analogy in context of what you were just saying, because like you could be that player in the stands, like thinking, bullshitting yourself, like, no, I'm getting support for the team. This is actually helping us. This is good for us. Come on, everybody, you guys should be cheering me on for doing my part. But like the reality is, no, you got to be on the court. You're handicapping your team, right? And so,
right, like, are you scoring or directly affecting the scoring in a way that is verifiable?
And so, you know, it's like a goofy analogy, but it's really good because it's like, what if that guy just really loves the fans? He's like, man, I love the energy that I get from the fans. Like they're so lively, all that stuff. It's like, fuck that. We don't need that. And the problem with that is if that person is LeBron James and his resources would best be used on the fucking court, Well, when LeBron James up in the stands and your team loses, trust me, you're not going to be able to go high five the fans because they're going to say, fuck you. My point being, obviously, I'm extrapolating this analogy, but everybody's focused on their self interest, not realizing that that's not sustainable. If you continue to do that, there will come a time where you don't have that option anymore.
Yeah. No, man, I just want to be a music producer. It's like, well, your power just went out.
Shout out, Jesper. But see, he had to watch that for himself. I had to watch this for myself.
Yeah, I
Right?
did too. Yeah.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Okay, we all did, right?
Yeah. No, I just want to cook. I just want to travel the world. I just want
Right.
to, like, there's so many things. It's like,
But-
I get
No,
a lot
you
of
have
enjoyment out of
vaccine to
this.
fly.
Was
I
that?
just want to be a model. I know.
Yeah, I just said
That's what
you need
Cameron
a
had to
vaccine
walk
to go
through.
fly to visit those chefs.
No,
right?
that's what
Right.
Cameron had to walk through. He just wanted to be a model because that was his calling. But it's funny because now that we're talking about it, it's like I walked through like the carved out pathway so fucking cookie cutter of like being able to make like 10 grand a month, which is like okay, for like a slave, it's pretty good, right? And being like, oh great, but this doesn't make me happy. And I remember thinking, okay, I remember moving to Toronto for a big sales opportunity, then me and my brother being like, dude, fuck this, like I can't do this anymore. And then being in a basement in Scarborough and being like, okay, so if I'm not gonna do things for money, because that's not motivating to me, right? We're trapped in this whole thing, like it's all about motivation, all this stuff, right? I had so much problem finding motivation, right? If I'm not gonna do this thing because it's not motivating for me, the money's not motivating for me, then what's the opposite of that?
Just be happy.
What's my passion,
Oh, passion. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So what is it?
Okay.
Tell me.
So I started trying a bunch of different stuff, and I tell the story of like I started tutoring for a bit, but I was like, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. Like they got good grades and it was really cool and fulfilling, but it's like I don't want to just do this forever. I started teaching like ukulele in school, called Ukulele for Kids, and it was yeah, like kindergarten to grade 3, crazy shit, straight up. Right? They all got ukuleles. I got little ukuleles, right? I'm teaching these kids kindergarten to grade 3, right? And then at the end of it, it's like all the parents come in and we play 4 songs, and one of them is SpongeBob, and I get to be the captain. I'm like, are you ready, kids? They love it, right? I can't hear you. Aye, captain. Started SpongeBob, right? And I'm like, that was so cool. Like the videos and the parents being like, thank you so much, all that stuff. And I feel good, all this stuff. I'm like, I don't want to do this forever.
Right.
And then I keep going. I'm
But
like,
wait, why not?
it's like I honestly don't know. I could see the result of it is like unconsciously. I'm like, I could do more than this. I don't want to just be going school to school, whatever.
But hold on real quick. Like, why can you imagine somebody though saying like, man, but hey, if that's what makes you happy, and imagining some person saying like, yes, this really makes me happy. I just teach these kids ukulele and it's just really fulfilling. And they have all these reasons and justifications like, oh, it teaches the kids a little bit about arts and creativity and whatever their justifications are. But what I want to ask you is, why is that still not acceptable?
Because one city over, there's a fucking school where some kid comes in with a gun and he just, they're like impulsing each other and basically just creating systematic abuse. Like,
I know.
it could even be in that classroom. Like, are those kids
Right.
being fundamentally supported? Or are they just going to grow up and be like, I want to be on TV because that,
You're right. I know being a teacher and seeing the quote unquote problem children, and that there's nothing you can do about it because the problem's happening at home.
There. Yeah. Also, who gives a fuck about ukulele?
Right, exactly.
Just straight up.
But if it brings a little bit of happiness, like I'm just looking at all the different justifications, and it's like if you kind of categorize them, there's the justification of it brings a little bit of happiness into other people's lives, which means now I'm responsible to do that. But then also it's like, it's not like I'm just free to really do it, because what if they were like, well, we're not going to pay you anything.
Yeah, I wouldn't have done it.
Right.
You say, well, I can just live off of nothing, right? I can just live off of the bare minimum as long as I get to do the ukulele for the kids, right? And it's like, okay, that's fine. Let's just take that for a moment. But how does it fundamentally stop the abuse that happens in the world?
Somebody will
imagine
hear
there's a
this
scenario where a child is being beaten or hit or sexually abused or starved or tortured or whatever because the adults don't have a good effective mental stability because they were abused as children and didn't have a good education and so forth, right? How is what you're doing going to have any impact on that?
Okay, but here's what they'd say to that, right? Well, then how is teaching them math and you know language arts or any of that stuff? How's that going to stop the abuse?
Yeah, in the context of school, it wouldn't stop it. I totally agree.
Because the way that they talk about what it means to teach, like you just teach them something and they try to memorize something.
But also, you didn't educate the parents.
Right. And that's in control of the children's environment.
I mean, by the time the kid gets to school, they already learned everything.
Yeah.
So the parents, like the environment that the kids are in the first 7 years, that's developing who they are more than what you learn in school. Because when you go to school, what do they tell you? Just find what you're good at and then focus on that. So that's kind of like becomes your purpose, right? But that implies you were already good at something before you even learned anything, or like you brought something to it that made you good at it.
Right.
But then not understanding that that's actually developed at home based on the limitations of your vocabulary and based on the values that your parents imprinted upon you. You know, being competitive versus sharing or whatever the fucking things are that your parents taught you.
That's a cool point because like you said, it's like it implies that you're bringing something to the table, but they don't know where that something comes from. They think that's just like, you're just born with it. And you may be genetically, right, born with some kind of skill or whatever, but then that's developed, as you said, within the home, within your environment.
Well, and there are families where they get those advantages or it's genetic or whatever, but what about everybody else? So that all that does is create more inequality anyway. So even if there are some children where it's a genetic advantage, that still creates the inequality. So
yeah, still the point is that the school's not actually developing that. They're
Right.
not actually helping you at all. They're just saying, find what you're good at, or this kid happens to be good at this. They'll do well.
I've heard that so many times of like, so what made you choose like to become an engineer?
I was good at math. I liked it.
yeah, it's like such a flippant, like
Well, you know, like I chose something I'm good at, basically.
this gift of life that you've been given that you never get back. It's like this most like valuable possible thing that can ever exist. You're like, oh yeah, you know, I was good at math, so. But
That's such a great point.
but you're in a system that gives you that opportunity for that excuse. You see what I'm saying? So it's not like I'm judging the person per se because they didn't know any better, really.
Mhm.
But it's like you're in a system where that's a normal, easy, natural thing to do. And that's why we keep talking about the system. It's not about just fundamentally go and try to convince each person to wake up. That's only part of the equation because they're being plugged into systems that are reinforcing, no, you just go down this path.
Yeah.
But if you just only change that, but you don't change the education at home, that's why all the attempts to change the education system, they're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
All they try to do is just automate it more. Isn't that ironic? Think about this. Like I was talking with a distributor earlier and they're in Europe, right? And they were saying how they were talking to somebody about Segment Tutor and the person was bringing up this point about, oh, well, you know, because we talk about the education system, right? And they're like, yeah, well, I mean, that's like America, that's their value system, how they do education and so forth, right? It doesn't work. Like they try to get everybody to do the same thing. But here in Europe, I won't say the country, but here in Europe, in this particular country, we have a system that helps everybody based on what they need.
Oh,
Right.
shit, dude.
So that took us into the conversation about like, okay, does everyone learn the same or not? Right. And so my point being, though, is that what I explained to him, I said, you have to understand the United States is ahead in the consequence. So all the like, come on. Do you really think fundamentally education is any different in any other country?
Mm.
How is it different? You go to school. Do they in these other countries like Denmark, Germany, wherever, do they learn algebra?
Mm-hmm.
How are they doing it so fundamentally different? Well, we teach algebra in 10 different ways according to different people. If that were true, think about it. are there 10 different types of people, or is everyone 100% unique?
Got him.
So are you going to come up with an infinite number of ways to teach algebra?
True.
Not likely.
You know what I mean? But if you have the vocabulary, it doesn't really fucking matter how you're taught it.
Right. Because you
And then there's the
understand
whole
it.
question of how you teach it. The thing is, no one can pull the wool over my eyes when it comes to the concept of applying teaching. So I'm not talking about educational theory. I'm talking about the actual application of like teaching a student.
Where they get the result.
Because I was a tutor for so long, I was the person that the kids came to, the parents brought me to when it didn't work.
Right.
I know firsthand, and I got the results in the system. All it is you explaining it a bunch. And what I did as a tutor is I would explain it using stories or examples that were relevant to the child's experience. So you say, oh, see, every child learns differently. No, all still learned the same way. I just changed the story because that child had a different vocabulary. They had a different set of memories. I was able to see what their memories are in essence. You know, this kid's a basketball player. Okay, let me talk about basketball and try to get him engaged with that. But it's not like at the end of the day, you have to understand what a fraction is. You have to understand a denominator, a numerator. You have to understand, like, there's no, they say like, well, I mean, think about it. How do you teach that differently to different children? If each child had an equally effective vocabulary and they understood all the words and they understood all the context, would you need to even think about that?
No.
And then even if there is some variation in terms of how you presented, that would be fine. Although theoretically, I don't see why you would need to. There's still going to be some environmental variation where it can make sense why you might have to use different contexts. But if the basic vocabulary of the subject was integrated within the child where they could process it, you wouldn't need to do all of that, like to the extreme levels that we look at today in the education system, because the child would just understand what's being said. Do you see what I'm saying? They would understand it. So all the educational theory around different learning styles, it's just a theory.
Right.
It's not proven.
Right.
And all it is trying to explain a problem that's seen. It's not actually the underlying point. And here's an analogy I used. When you have different babies, right, in different families, right? Does every baby learn to walk eventually? Unless there's some physical dysfunction, like their legs don't work, neural damage, whatever. Generally speaking, though,
Yeah.
they all learn to walk.
Right.
And did the parents have to be trained as experts in learning styles to do that?
No, not at
Did
all.
they have to learn, like,
It did.
how come an expert trained teacher can't get a 5-year-old to learn how to read, but a parent who's super low IQ can get their like child to learn how to walk, which is way more complicated.
Yeah.
Oh shit, dude. The spells are a little bit too great for this.
Look at how much they're spending in like research and stuff to get robots to be able to walk.
Yeah.
They can't even replicate it yet. You see what I'm saying? So
Baby robots, Mitch.
I know.
you see the difference though, the learning, the natural learning ability.
Yeah.
And so when you don't structure that effectively, then you get all this dysfunction later. And that's the problem. And so I understand why people say all these things.
Whoa, wait, hold on. I want to that point because there are a lot of spells in there, man. I'm straight up like spelled out. Thanks for spelling it out. It's a great point because for people that don't have the context to the objection of within somebody of taking responsibility for their child's education, they say, well, I can't do it. I'm not an expert. Leave it up to the teachers, leave it up to the professors, leave it up to the experts.
Yeah. So imagine if they said that about the
It's
kid
so
learning to
funny
walk.
because it's so fucked.
So imagine when the kid was trying to learn to walk, they were like, oh, I'm not an expert in teaching children how to walk.
It's such a great point, man. And the reason why it's a great point, because I understand why people say that. Don't get me wrong. Like I would have said the exact same thing. I'd been like, yeah, fuck it, put my kid in school. T-shirt idea, baby robot bomb. Thanks, Drake. Make note. The reason is to accentuate what the difference is between the natural learning ability and trying to like memorize a bunch of bullshit. It's like,
yeah, part of the problem too, just to add to that, is the parents think that they'll learn all that stuff when they get to school.
Right.
Imagine if as a parent you were like, well, look, I don't need to teach them how to learn to walk right now. They'll get that when they're 5 or 6. And so you literally like never let them see you walking or anything. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, I know
Oh,
it's
fuck
extreme.
yeah. Yeah.
That's kind of how
Mhm.
parents think about it. And you'll notice the ones who don't, who like spend more time with their kids, like reading to them and showing them letters, generally those kids do better.
Yeah.
We can take it way further with TechnoTutor. Like I know that 100%. So I'm not suggesting, oh, you just got to read to your kids. Yes, you do, but that's just part of it. You know, if you don't have TechnoTutor, you're not going to get the results we're getting. That's like a whole nother level. But I'm just saying, you can even see in the system the people who read to their kids or have books in the homes. But then the question is, why do those parents do that?
Mhm.
Because they're comfortable with reading. That's a part of their life already. So you can see it's the advantage passed down.
Yeah.
That's not systematic. That's not going to change the world, because you see all these people now, and you've seen this too, Drake, because I know you, like, we do a lot of the research and share with each other and all this stuff, right? But you see, especially in the low income families, or not in the low income families, but in the activism, I guess, around education, where they're like, oh, we just need to get them,
Yeah.
like, they posters, or we just need to get them to like read to their kids, like read to your kids. Like, they're not gonna.
They're not
reading.
gonna. They're not
Right.
gonna. They've already not done it for however long. Like, and I've talked to a lot of these parents as well who don't read to their kids, and they're just like, but it's so much. It's so hard. Like reading a little 5-minute book to your fucking kid. Like,
I'll be right back.
okay.
Like this is what I'm reading to Max. It's like
The reading literature.
yeah, the modern reading research. Yeah. Mitch, what did you realize in that point of like how fucked it is basically, where people are like, I can't be responsible for teaching my kid anything.
Just how it's so automated of thinking that, oh yeah, we don't have to do that here because there's some expert at school, like these teachers, like they're the expert, or the guidance counselor, whatever it is, or the book that they read from some parenting expert. Like, okay, just leave it up to that expert. Like they can't see it for themselves of, oh shit, I could actually just figure this out and trust myself. And then, you can cross-reference it with other material, but like that idea of, oh, I'm just going to trust it and like put him in daycare, put him in school. It's like you're literally like sacrificing your child to the system.
And I understand, like, here's the thing, people without TechnoTutor couldn't do it.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So I think part of the challenge that comes up when people maybe are just listening from the outside, it's like, well, but what else can you do? Because if you just say, like we were talking about, just tell them to read to their kids, they can't read.
Mhm.
That's why we're talking, okay, you have to have TechnoTutor. You still have to also look at the other context that we're talking about. Like, don't put your kids in daycare if you don't absolutely have to. Don't put them in school if you don't absolutely have to. Don't let them watch a bunch of uncontrolled TV and Netflix if you don't absolutely. Well, I don't know why you'd have to, but you know what I'm trying to say. Like, if you don't need to do those things, don't. I would suggest you don't do those things, right?
Yeah.
But so it's like, until somebody sees TechnoTutor and understands it, and they spend the time to understand the philosophy and the why behind it and all of that, it's like there's just like this dark fuzzy spot over the whole thing where you just can't get the pieces all to connect together because you can't see how they fit in that final particular point, because you don't know, oh, you can literally just build the child's vocabulary like you'd program a computer. That's amazing. Right. And this is what I went to get. So this is the book I'm reading right now, right? Because guys, I was talking about the 3-body problem, right? So I finished that a while back.
Right.
A few days ago. I just started reading this one. And every night what I do is I'll tell Max, because usually he'll fall asleep and I'll keep reading to myself because I have this little like light I had to pull out of here.
Oh, let me see it. I always hear you
It's a
talk
little
about
light that clips onto your book, you know?
this. Okay, cool. Can you show us an action? Oh,
That was quick.
that's cool.
That reminds me of like a Game Boy light that I used to have.
Yeah.
So
No,
the
it's
point
really
is that
cool
way,
because-
it's like you don't have to have the lamp on or whatever.
right,
So
exactly.
every morning when we wake up, I'll show him, I'll go, hey Max, look, this is where I'm at now. And he'll look at the number, he'll be like, whoa, 200. And the next day, and he'll be like 350 or whatever it is. He'll be like, wow, that's amazing, right? Now, just to be clear, I'm not trying to impress my son to get a boost of something. Like,
He's like, look,
this
I promise I
girl
can read. Look
really
how
thinks I'm amazing. Like no, I want him to see like I'm reading. You see what I mean? So now you might think, okay, well that's just all you got to do. You just got to read in front of your kids and stuff, right? But most people, they pick up a book like this, they might read it. When's the next time they're going to read a book?
They're not going to read a book. And then here's those people that are thinking, oh, I just got to pick up a book in front of my kid. They've got their phone in the book and they're just making it look like they're reading like, yeah, good book. You've been reading that book for a year, man.
You're like, yeah, I'm still on page 1.
Yeah.
I just have to goof my kid into thinking I read. Look, this is what I'm at. 111. Bring it up the next day. I'm at 183. Look.
You're just like pretending. Yeah. Well, so this is the 3-part series, right? So I happen to have the 3rd book just on my desk because I don't know when I'm going to want to read it because I'll be done and then I want to pick up this one, right? So I have it there. And also I was explaining to him like how books can be in a series. So I was showing them like, hey, when they kind of continue a story, right? So anyways, I had it there on my desk. And last night he was getting kind of sleepy. So I got out my book and I started reading it. And I would read a little bit out loud for him if the context is okay, right? He like looks over and he gets out of bed and he goes around the bed and he goes to the nightstand and he gets this book, right? And before he got it, I said, where are you going, Max? Because I thought maybe you go to the bathroom or something. He goes, oh, I'm going to get a book. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. So he goes and he gets this, right? And he gets in the bed next to me, right? And I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, I'm going to read Death's End. Like he knows the name of it, right? And I was like, okay. So he pulls it open to the first page, right? Okay. And then he sits there and he starts reading it out loud.
Shit, dude.
Right. And I'm not going to read it, but there's some words he didn't know, like the word, what was an example? There was endure. No, actually, no, he knew that one. What was one of them?
He's trying to figure out the words that his kid doesn't know. He's having some trouble.
There was definitely like a few words that I was surprised. He read the word glisten. He read the word silhouette. No problem.
Whoa.
If you're listening, spell the word silhouette. Then check
horizon. He didn't know that word. Well, he knows the word horizon, but when he read it, he was like, I forget how he said it. It was like slightly off pronunciation wise. So I was just listening at a certain point. And I just would correct him like horizon. He'd be like, oh, horizon. Okay. But anyways, it was cool because he read this whole page, right? And then afterwards he was like, I just read that whole page. He's like, that's amazing. He's like, I'm an amazing kid. And then he turns it right. And then he turns it here. And he goes, okay, I'm just going to put a dog ear here. Right? Because you see, I would normally put it a little bit more symmetrical, right? So he like made that one himself, right? And then he like closes it up and puts it down. And then he like kind of lays down. And then he like cuddles up like on my shoulder and rests his head there while I continue reading. And I can see him kind of looking at the page. And every once in a while he'll be like, why does it say, and he'll like say a word, right? And I'm like, well, I'm not there yet. I don't know yet, or he'll ask me about, so he's like actually looking at it and like reading some of the words, right? My point is he could read that whole page. And what was the reason why I explained all of that?
Proud parent.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is it's like, how is he able to read all those words?
And we were talking about the like giving the responsibility of education to the experts, even though they can't get them to read.
Right. So, but it's like, why is he able to actually read it? So number one, what I'm trying to show is I'm setting an example,
right?
But I'm not faking it. Like I'm actually reading these books. Like I'm interested to read them. I want to know what happens next. I'm recommending if it's a good book, whatever. Right. But he sees that I'm reading it. And if he comes into my office, he sees I have books sitting here that I'm working on, right? For work stuff. Mm-hmm. But so that's the example because I'm actually reading. But then we're building his vocabulary so he can actually read. So when he picks up this book, he doesn't go like, I don't even know how to explain the significance of that, of him picking up this book and just starting to read it, reading the whole page and then being like, cool, I'm going to make a mark so I can get to the next page next time.
Even just in being in high school and picking up a thick book, I was like, no, thanks.
Right.
Yeah, it's like, when I was a kid, if I had seen my parents reading a book, it would have just been like, wow, someday or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, or maybe like, that's too much for me or
right.
whatever.
When I get older, then I can read those kinds of
right.
books.
But it's like, he's 4.5. He saw me reading that last night. And for whatever reason, I don't know. I didn't say anything. He went up and got this and said he wanted to read it. It was kind of like
you were like, no, that's not for you. Like that's an adult
right.
book. You need to go get like a graphic book, like one with pictures.
Right. So it was just really cool because, it's funny. You said that point about proud, right? it's like I don't really feel a sense of pride about it, actually. It's more like I want to tell the story so I can press upon other people
Right.
that they can do it.
Yeah.
As opposed to that, you know, that feel, it's like there's like a superiority feeling, I guess, that comes along with pride. It's like, oh, well, look at what my child is doing.
Right,
You know
right,
what I
right,
mean? You know what I'm saying? That thing that people have, right?
Yeah.
But then you have to have inequality for that to be relevant.
Hmm.
That's why I try to give as much context as possible. Like, if I wanted to, I could just instead make it seem like Max is so special.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah.
I could pretend like, or like I'm special. That's why I can read this book. And I'm telling you, no, why I can read it. I'm using TechnoTutor every day. I read a lot. I develop myself. I push myself. Like that's the reason I can do it. Not just because I'm special, you know? And with the kids, I don't want them to be perceived as special because that doesn't help. It doesn't help them. How does it help them? Unless they're just going to use that as a competitive advantage against other people, which is like, doesn't make any sense. That's not the life I would want if I could prevent it.
I don't remember if it was on the last podcast. I do remember talking to Christine and Kian about this. I don't know if I was saying that I said it on the last podcast last week, but it was this point of things shifting inside of me to when I was younger, or before I found these tools, before I walked the process for a bit. I wanted to be special.
Yeah.
So if somebody else thought they can do what I did, I'd feel bad. And if they thought like, oh man, you're so amazing, like you're so special, I'd feel good.
Yeah.
Now it's the opposite.
Hmm.
When people are like, oh man, you're so special. Like, wow, I wish I could do what you do. I'm like, no, like you can. Like, I fucking promise you, like I was not a good speaker before. I was not. I would just talk all the time with no pauses, speed demon. Right? Like I was not good. I would watch Cameron's video and be like, oh, I hope one day I can be effective like that.
And can we also address the point of it's not a false modesty that we're trying to project either.
Yeah.
Like,
It's a big
like I'm not as tall as Mitch. Like if Mitch was like, no, you could be tall like me one day too. I'd be like, I told you, like it's not going to happen.
Yeah, Cam.
Yeah. Right.
You see what I'm saying? Like,
Take these stem cells.
right. Well, I don't know. I think I got some weird shots when I was a kid. It made my legs short or something.
Excuses.
But it's kind of silly, but I'm just trying to say, like, we're not trying to be like, no, it's really anybody can do it. Like, I also understand when there's going to be a point where other people aren't going to be able to do it as well.
Yeah.
Like,
You know, that's actually, I know you're going to give an example, but I just want to say that point of that false modesty is a lot of what we see right now within these like social justice groups of like, oh, everyone can, you know, be a woman or everyone can be a man. It's like, no, everyone can be equal. Yeah. But like, not like that. That's not how that works, man.
well, everyone is equal.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean we're the same.
Right. It doesn't mean we have the same skills either, you know, like we are equal in value, but
Well, let's look at the skill for a second. Okay.
Mhm.
If like, I've been thinking about getting a wood lathe. Okay. It just looked fucking cool. Okay. Katie says I can get one because we agree about things. Because if it was me, I'd just have like the house full of like random shit, right?
yeah,
Like, wait, Did
synthesizers.
it. I agree, but so she kind of helps me rein back in like to reality, right?
Yeah.
But we're gonna wait till we get the next property so we have a place to put it and so forth, right? But
we're getting a wood lathe.
we're getting a wood lathe.
I remember after
A
the last
mini
podcast, you just
Mini.
sent us a link. You just sent us a link. It was a wood lathe. We were like, you're like, isn't it cool, guys?
Like, anybody else like dreaming about this?
We're like, what the fuck do we do with this?
But I mean, think about it. You can make your own bowls.
Knife handles.
It pays for itself. Yeah, exactly.
Candlesticks.
Pins. You guys are all getting pins for your birthday. But it's like it's a skill that you'd have to develop, right? You can't just suddenly get on there and suddenly just make an amazing thing.
Right.
You might have a talent for it, but that's just pre-programming, right? Just like one person might be really good at soccer versus another person may never really be good at it.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean that one person can't improve.
Mhm.
Of course, the older you are, the more difficult it's going to be, especially with physical things like that. But when it comes to vocabulary, it's as simple as just integrating that word physically. You do that, and then you practice applying the information, it's amazing how much you can develop.
Yeah.
Especially even if you think like, oh, I don't know how to communicate with people, I'm uncomfortable, blah, blah, whatever it is. It's just limitations in your vocabulary. So when we're talking about like the points you were bringing up where you're saying like, no, really, I used to be a terrible speaker, like you can do it too. Even the points where talent comes in, let's just take that out for a second. People can improve drastically beyond where they're at. It's just that most of their life was spent fitting them into a really narrow channel towards the point of just getting some job where you're not going to need any of that ability to speak, you know, like and sell or whatever it is. But it does take time to develop a skill. You know, the reason I brought the wood lathe is like, just because I get it day one and I'm excited doesn't mean I'll be able to make a bowl.
Right.
I might make a bowl and then it's too thin and it breaks. So, you know, you have to like learn the skill and then like you become comfortable with it physically and so forth. Right. But I will tell you, the first thing I'm going to do is put all the vocabulary in a Technotutor. That's the first thing I'm going to do. I've already been doing it before I even had it. Right. But what I'm saying is I want to watch the videos and learn. Right. But the point is, it does take time to develop a skill. So we're not trying to act like, oh, you could just suddenly do it because I can do it right now. No, it's going to take you time. But we understand the fundamental importance of vocabulary. And if someone develops their vocabulary, then those other things will be able to come out more naturally.
And it's specifically developing your vocabulary so it's integrated unconsciously, subconsciously, and consciously. Because someone might hear that, oh, I'll just read the glossary in the back of the book.
Right.
Just so everyone's clear, when I say build your vocabulary, I mean use Technotutor. Those to me are synonymous.
Yeah.
I don't try to do any vocabulary building for myself outside of that, unless that's the first thing I do.
Yeah.
Because anything else is built on that foundation.
What do you mean? Unless it's the
kinda
first
like-
thing you do?
Where it's like you don't know a word in a moment and you look it up on Google or whatever, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to put that into my technical.
Yeah, but I go put it in my Technotutor.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
And
And then
it's
you have
okay
to
to
do
like
the
in
thing
that moment
technically.
clarify you're trying to understand something.
Yeah.
But I'm not deluding myself that I'm really fully processing it. So if I do have my Technotutor, I might have my laptop with me most of the time.
Yeah.
Right. So it's
One
like
of those
not a big
little
deal.
2-word lists. Like,
Yeah.
All right.
Right. So, but my point is that's always the foundation of everything, right? If it's something I can't figure out, whatever it is, if it's like with the kids, if something's come up where there's a conflict or something between them or with us and them or whatever it is, we go to that first, and then we support. You know, in the times where we made the mistake of not doing it, it's always like you're trying to change something that doesn't want to be changed,
Right.
and then you do this, and then it happens. You're like, man, I wish sometimes we'll have maybe Saeed come on here at some point or something, because you guys were telling me this story about him and like just amazing stories, like the stuff that people do where you're not even really sure if this other person even knows what they're doing, and yet they just do the basics and it works, and you're like, well, there's another example. But it's, to me, it's not like how is it? It's like, I'm not surprised. It's not like oh, cool. Okay, good. No, it's just more like yeah, obviously. But at the same time, it's like cool because you see that it's working for other people, which means things are actually improving.
That's when I wanted to talk about that point of pride that you were mentioning. It's not like, haha, yes. It's like when I discover a new level for myself, I'm like, yes, the human being can go to this level. The human being can let go of this level of delusion of
Mhm.
themselves.
Yeah.
Mitch, are you gonna say
That-
something? You just burping into the mic? Or like what?
Combo.
What are you say?
It's like, yeah, like when I hear those stories from Saeed or just from all these other people that are now using Technotutor, and they'll use it so that they can level themselves up to the next level with understanding and all that, and then like something changes in their life, they actually get a different result. It's like, it's awesome. It's like kind of like Cam said, like it's obvious, but I love having that story because it's just another way that I can share with more people, and that we collectively can share with more people, so people can just realize what's become obvious to all of us is just
Right.
use your Technotutor every day. Whatever you're working on, use it and then share it.
And
That's the purpose.
with I think the exciting part is we're always when you're seeing it happen in a new situation, because the principle is consistent. The fact that it works is consistent. You never know how that actually looks. Like, could you have predicted that Max would go do that and then fold a
That's what I'm
document
saying.
and
It's
stuff
like,
like that?
it's not a, that's what I'm trying to say. Like, just like the thing we were talking about with Saeed, which we're being vague on purpose because I want people to talk to him about it or whatever, right? But just any number of examples. It's never like, oh my God, I can't believe it worked. It's not like that. It's just a cool. I wasn't predicting this to happen in this way.
Right.
I don't even know how to explain. It's like if you make a really good meal and then it's really good. You're not like, oh my God, I did it. You're like, oh yeah, this is really great. Like
I haven't had this
the fact that
taste.
it happened.
I haven't had this taste before.
Yeah, like, oh wow, this really worked out really well. But you're not like surprised. You're just
Mhm.
pleased with it, if that makes sense, right?
It's
So it's
like
like with
cool.
Max,
Everything comes
if
together.
someone had said, hey, if you use this techno tutor enough, and you do all these things, eventually he's going to go pick up a book like that. I could have said that was probably going to happen someday. But when it actually happens, you're like, wow, that really just happened. Like, that's not a normal thing to happen. That's not normal. You're laying in bed with your 4-year-old. He goes over and gets one of your books that looks like this, and then reads a whole fucking page himself.
It's pretty phenomenal, man. It's
Like,
pretty phenomenal.
Most parents, if they try to get their kid to read like a fucking C-Spot Run book, they don't even want to read 3 pages of that.
Right.
Yeah.
Which it's like 2 sentences, and you're trying to like force the kid. And I'm like, I didn't ask Max to do it. I didn't say, keep going, you can do it. No, he just kept reading. I'm like, okay, cool. He wants to do this. So then you have all these unschooling type shit where it's like, oh, see, you just let it happen naturally. Nothing about anything that we've done with our kids is natural. Meaning it's all directed. I don't want to say it's unnatural, but I'm saying it's directed. It wasn't going to happen on its own.
Yeah.
That'd be like saying, hey guys, if you just let things just work out, like you get an iPhone in the mail or some shit. I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying?
It's like it's natural
on its own. Like, there's a reason why it happened.
It's natural that they're learning something. It's natural that they're learning something. It's just like, are they learning like, okay, like
They're learning how to hold on to stress.
right, or like, just be on my phone all the time or whatever.
When unschoolers talk about natural, they really mean wild. They just mean fucking.
Yeah, right. But when unschoolers, generally speaking, talk about natural, they mean don't force your kids to do something.
Like, don't step in the way. Don't get involved in their process.
Yeah, or just don't try to force it. Don't. And I'm sure every unschooling parent has their own idea of what that means to them.
Right.
Right. But it's like, if you're going to think that you can just let things happen naturally. Okay, let's see. If I go into the middle of a Walmart and I take a plant and I just go and set it in the middle of the Walmart, is it just going to naturally grow? No. You see what I mean? That's not going to happen. Whatever's going to happen is whatever that environment is.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like if I put a baby pig in an industrial fucking pig farm or whatever, it's going to turn into that. It's not going to be just this free, wonderful, wild pig, it's going to be whatever the fucking system is it's in. So with the kids, to say like, well, if I don't force them to read, they'll develop it naturally on their own. Yeah. And then you're going to put them into a system that requires them to be able to process information at a super advanced fucking level to be able to even survive. And you didn't do anything to support them. And again, what can a parent do? See, here's the problem. You can't force it. What else do you do? Imagine being a parent in that scenario where you realize, okay, I don't want to just force them to go to school. So I'm going to keep them at home. But now what do I do?
Mm-hmm.
So they're like, you want to read a book? And the kid's like, what the fuck is that? It'd be like someone giving you a Chinese book and you didn't have technology, right? I just gave you a book in Chinese and you're like, I don't know what this is. What do I do with it? I don't care about that. No. Like, you would not have any interest.
Right.
But then what happens is when you put those symbols in effectively, suddenly you see them, you take notice of them. You're like, huh, what is that? And they say, oh, well, that's this. It means this. You're like, interesting. Okay. And then you build up enough of that, and suddenly you start seeing patterns you didn't see before. You start seeing meaning. You start being able to have conversations. It's like funny when I watch Max go to the playground and he's trying to talk to kids and they're just looking at him like, and he's like talking to this kid. He's like, so on my computer, well, okay, I have two computers and one is Mac and one is Windows. Okay. But on the Windows one, I have DOS. Do you know about DOS games? Do you know about DOS? And the kid's like 7 years old, like, what? Right? And somebody might say, oh, well, that's really bad because he's going to be so far ahead of his peers. Yeah. That's why my purpose is to help other people get their kids to accelerate as well. Right? Because if Max was 12 years old, you wouldn't think that was weird.
And the thing is, if you have this amount of ability, you're never going to understand all this. But if you have this amount of ability, you have access to everything else beneath that. For example, very successful people are experts at communication. They can talk down to whatever level they need to talk down to. And when I say talk down, I don't mean talk condescendingly to. I mean to simplify what you're saying to whatever, just like Cameron was talking.
Are you talking down to me?
I'm talking down right now, right? It's
Explain
just
to a 5-year-old. You're like a 5-year-old with techno-tutor or without?
It's the reason why Cameron was such an effective tutor is because he could, oh, you like video games? Okay, I'm going to break this problem down in terms of video games. So you play racing games? Okay, so the number on top of the lap is the numerator, on the bottom of the lap is like
But
the denominator, right?
you know what though? And see, I know you already know this, but I just want to spell it out, right? See what I did, guys? Spell it. But what? Because you do this too, right? Where it's like, and Drake, you do this too, where it's like, sorry, bitch, you're fucking weird. You don't do but you guys have both tutored, right? You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So
Yeah.
it's not just the part you, because you were saying that you're telling the story or whatever, but there's another level to it where it's like they feel really comfortable with you.
Yeah.
Like
Right.
they don't like if necessary, it depends on the child. Like, so you don't come across as, oh, you're just like my teacher. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So it's like I might be nonchalant about it. I might be like, oh, cool. Yeah, homework. Yeah, school is pretty boring. I know. Like, why do you even have to go? It doesn't make sense. Okay, but we're here, so we got to work this out. I mean, or not. Like, you might have that kind of attitude.
Yeah.
Or you might have a student who's very studious, you know, and you're like, you're very professional with them. Like, you're able to be flexible
Mhm.
in how you speak. So it's not just like, oh, I'm talking to a child now. Okay, I talk this way. It's like there's several different children and they have different personalities based on how they've been programmed, their different responses to school and so forth. And I think that is perhaps where people are coming from when they're talking about different learning styles and people learn differently. They're not really learning differently. It's just that they're not listening to you. You know what I'm saying? Like,
so
they don't.
true.
That's all it is. Like, you're either fucking boring them or you're not communicating with them.
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
trying to come at it from a condescending, actually, even though you're not trying to be condescending, it's actually a sort of you're here and they're here rather than just relating to them.
That's
But
such a good
that
point.
is a vocabulary skill that you have to develop.
It's like you're just not an effective communicator. It's not that these kids have different learning styles. It's that you're not an effective communicator. So you don't know how to communicate to different people. You
so
think
that, yeah, because that's not really learning.
right.
Like, if I'm explaining some, oh, this, people are going to hate this.
Good. It's been a while.
How can I explain it though? It's like,
Explain it in terms of cookies, because that always works for me.
okay, if I'm learning cookies now, what I was going to say, which is not totally accurate, but I was going to say, when you're explaining something to someone, that's not learning. That's just an explanation. That's them starting to see how things fit together, but that's
The-
not
the
actually
simplest way-
learning in itself.
Tell
Yeah,
me
that-
if this is accurate, but of what you're trying to say. But the way I explain it is there's the putting the dots inside of you and then connecting the dots.
Exactly.
And putting the dots physically inside of you is what you're trying to accentuate as that is learning when you're putting it inside of you. And then talking about it or explaining or reading a book is all the pieces are getting put together.
I guess all of that is part of the process. Right?
Exactly.
But what I'm saying is
But you
there is
need-
a distinction
You need
between
that
them.
one.
And usually what's missed in it is missed fundamentally in school, most educational theory in terms of how it's actually applied is it misses the whole part about putting the dots in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it kind of plays into the whole idea that you're just born with a certain nature, or you're just you're like you have a soul. So fucking Plato thought or says that you already come into the world knowing everything, and then your soul has to you have to remember shit.
Yeah.
You don't actually learn anything.
Yeah.
Just remembering what you already knew, and it's like that's a very destructive philosophy.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Because it makes it seem like that justifies the inequality.
Right.
Because some souls are just more advanced. They come with more knowledge. And it's like, so that's why I want people to see like Max is not just advanced. Yes, there is going to be some pre-programming that he gets, but your child might have different pre-programming that gives them an advantage in some area. But regardless of that, they can both learn math. They can both learn and develop their vocabulary and be able to read and communicate.
I like that.
So we're not trying to downplay the advantages. We're saying we should to bolster the points where you're weak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And that's that point about pride. To summarize what I was saying about pride and how I feel about myself is like, now when somebody says you're special, I'm like, no. But when somebody's like, hey, that's cool how you apply that, I'm going to do that for myself too. I'm like, yeah, here's how. Like, here's what I did for myself even more. So when Cameron, like that point of quote unquote pride, it's just like, oh, great. Like, just like Mitchell said, this is another story I can tell to support someone to understand like how fundamental this is, how it can literally it's such a universal tool and a universal process that it can really affect everything. The way you understand what's going on inside of you, the way you develop, the speed or the rate at which you learn, your interactions with other people, how effective you are in completing tasks and being efficient and being organized and being able to make money for yourself. It's like every angle of every single thing. So when it comes up in a brand new way, it's always like, oh, cool. I didn't think it was going to come up like that, but now I'm going to remember this.
Yeah. I'm going to use this.
Exactly.
There was another point too, which is you are directing your own learning. Each of us, right, is now directing our own learning. So we're looking at the parts where we're weak and then seeing how we can improve it, building our vocabulary in that area, and then applying ourselves. So whenever we say like we know someone else can do it, we're not just saying it to artificially boost their self-esteem. Like we're doing it ourselves. So we therefore understand the process, and that's how we know it's possible. It's not because I just believe in you. It's like, I know I'm not actually special. I'm really not. The only time I was when I just wanted to believe I was so I could feel better about myself. That there was no actual specialness. Like I'm just a normal human being like anybody else. Mm-hmm. So if I can actually direct my own learning and start to improve, then I'm like, well, fuck, anyone can do this, because you can all identify for yourselves up to a certain point in your life, you were just going along with things and everything was just happening to you. And then at a certain point, you were introduced to the idea of self-improvement or something to that effect, right?
Right.
But then you were still doing it from the starting point of it happening to you.
Yeah.
Thinking if I just do what they're telling me, it'll kind of just all improve. But that didn't work, did it? It didn't fundamentally change anything. Until you took that point on of, wait, what is it I need to change within myself? What am I accepting? And then looking at that and then seeing, well, what do I have to do differently? Oh, but I'm afraid of that. Oh, I see. And then actually pushing yourself in those areas. That's the actual self-directed learning process.
Go ahead, Drake.
That point that you're making about like, we have all done this for ourselves practically. It's not coming from some theory. Bernard makes that point in finding your purpose in the journey to life. And it is basically like very, really simple. The point is, don't you want a teacher who's practically walking these things? Like, as opposed to somebody who's just like, oh, here's, the theory of what you're supposed to know. And I know this because somebody else told me, versus like, I'm actually doing this. This is how you do it. Go do it. And then now you can do it. And now you know it for yourself, rather than I'm just going off of what other people have told me, and I have to trust those things. It's like you can't trust that, you know.
That's like going to the therapist and their life is a mess.
You know, it's such a great point about how we've been deluded, and the whole like traditionally, who do you listen to, and going all the way back to the whole, oh, leave the teaching to the experts, leave the education to the experts. It's like that person who's saying that within themselves, they're not even looking at the result. It doesn't just make sense. Oh, that person knows what they're doing because of the result they got, therefore I'll leave it to them. That's one thing. But they're just saying, leave it to the expert because they have taken tests about the information that they memorized that says I'm an expert. Not I'm an expert because look at what I produce. Because if you look at any schooling situation, it's like just then that parent should be like, holy fuck, I should keep this kid at home because I am a product of the education system and I don't even feel comfortable teaching them math, or like math is such a fundamental aspect. And so there's a big difference between how we classify. I made this video, a podcast on what qualifies me, and it's like the thing that qualifies us is not our university degree, even though Mitchell has a university degree in psychology.
Overrated.
We qualified the same way that an Olympic athlete qualifies for the Olympics. The fucking result.
Oh, I was going to say performance enhancing drugs.
Steroids. But you know what I'm saying? It's like they've proven themselves, regardless of if they became a exercise science expert about oxygen intake and anabolic and aerobic processes. It's like, who cares?
Imagine like somebody who's like got a degree in exercise science or something, and they're like a fat
kinesiology, right?
You're like totally awkward athletically and like
right.
You're like, yeah.
And that's why, like in that same podcast, you look at the word academia or academic, and it literally means not practical.
Yeah.
And it's like, why do you want that? So it's like this whole thing about going back to the whole the purpose point. It's like, and I'm glad that you're really pushing that point, Cameron, about how we can literally justify anything in our mind. But this is bringing people happiness and all this stuff. It's like when I was walking my kind of cookie cutter path of like, okay, let me find my passion. My big problem was commitment. I was jumping from thing to thing, couldn't commit to anything. So I figured once I found something that I wanted to commit to, because it was the first time I wanted to commit to something, therefore that was who I am. That's what I needed to do. That's my purpose in life. And that was acting. Because I've heard it so many times in my life, you should be an actor. I was like, oh, that's my calling. That's my fucking whatever. But it's like, no, that's the system that made sure that if you fell out of the really like the kind of education system, we have this other system that makes sure you just fall into this slot where you don't do anything.
Think about this. What is an actor? Actually, I mean, I'm not trying to be abstract. Like, what is an actor actually from your perspective?
Huh? Oh, like somebody who plays characters.
Okay. So like they
Some
able to like take on that character, really become it convincingly, read that script and so forth, right?
They're a liar.
Right. But how is that different than being a salesperson?
Yeah.
Like if you actually look at the skill set, you have to read a script, you have to act a certain way, right? Imagine the actor who does like the Las Vegas show where like for the whole life, they just do that one act. That's all they ever.
Well, here's
still an actor. Huh?
Yeah. Here's the really interesting part about it. It's like in a job interview, I always thought about this. It's like, why don't you just lie about the fact that you have a degree, do a really good interview, and then you get the job? Like it's just based off the interview.
Yeah.
And same thing with acting. It's like, if you nail the audition, you get the part.
Yeah.
With real change, it's like you either change the fucking person's brain or you didn't. Where they're like, oh shit, I get it. I get it enough to start moving, or they didn't. And the result of that is like, that parent is still gonna fuck their kids up because you weren't effective enough, or they're gonna change that kid's life forever, and the entire lineage of their family is gonna be changed forever. It's like that. It's totally, and that's why when people talk about purpose, they have no fucking idea what they're talking about, because who are they listening to? Somebody who made money and still just wants to make more money. Like, you know what I mean? Like nothing, it's nothing special.
Well, that's kind of what I'm saying about the acting thing, is like, you can be an actor in anything you do.
Yeah.
So when someone says that you should be an actor, that's literally the system going, hey, take that skill that you have and just go use, somebody else wants to use your skill to make money off of you.
Ah, right.
They're going to tell you what to say, and you're just going to say what they say, even if you agree or not, and you just never question it. Right? Like, imagine somebody who's like super progressive, who's like, gun violence is just the scourge of this world and so forth. Right? But then they're like the star of some fucking action movie where they're like,
Right.
like, for anyone in Hollywood to be anti-Second Amendment, but then literally program everybody with imagining themselves and like the video and all that stuff, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense.
Right.
You see what I'm saying? It doesn't make, and then also to be anti-war, even though you're making all these movies that make people think it's amazing. It's like, it's all hypocritical. But now the point is, even if those people were like, yeah, I know I don't actually agree with this, but it's like, it makes me millions of dollars. Yeah, that's my point. You could have been an actor in a different way. So it's like, even within, so I guess my point is, you can take that thing that you like doing and you can use it for the actual real best purpose. Do you see what I'm saying? You don't have to say, well, I like acting, so I have to be an actor, so I have to move to Hollywood.
Wait, you mean I can go back to cooking?
No,
Just hold on.
cook in my clubhouse. No.
When you come down here, you make us cookies, right? So
That's
you're
true.
doing that.
That's true. That's true.
Yeah.
And so it was that process of, that's not the point I was making.
Yeah.
And the like within myself.
No, you want to cook, right?
Yeah.
So do you want to have a fucking restaurant?
Not now.
But you see what I'm saying? Like, when you actually start to look at it, it's
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
is that actually what you want to do?
Right. Yeah.
Like, there are going to be people who, no matter what we say, are still going to go down that path and do all that stuff.
Yeah.
We don't need that many people. But if that person comes to me, I'm going to say, forget about that. Do this.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Likely that person who's super focused on that is never going to be looking for something.
You know, like I guess this is the whole point of like what we're saying here, but it's like the system is going to direct you to just go back into the system, as in whatever skill that you have, whatever you're good at, whatever it is, like follow your passion, all that shit is all just directing you back into the system. There's no other group out there or anything that's directing you toward life, doing what's best for life, aside from us. You know, somebody has to direct that. If the system is going to be just so systematic or ruthless or automatic or however you want to say it about directing every single individual to just support the system, which everyone agrees is not working. Everyone from the bottom to the elite, they all agree this shit is not working. That's why they're talking about this great reset and shit, right?
What about all the people in California who love cooking? And the restaurants are fucking shut down.
I was gonna say, like, the system will direct you back into whatever you want to do until they're like, fuck you, got you.
And at the end of the day, let me ask you a question. Does McDonald's want your little restaurant to compete with them?
No, they don't.
So whatever it takes, they will try to shut you down.
Right.
You know? So regardless of what your passion or whatever,
and still tell you to follow your passion. Oh, but you just got to try harder. Just got to get back
and then
into
there's
it.
like the McDonald's logo next to it. So you get that feeling, and then that information, that logo gets imprinted with that. So then you just want McDonald's.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. And then you start buying McDonald's. It's the same thing. Like we were saying this before with, sports teams. You get really into the particular player or whatever, whoever it is, or the team or whatever. You buy their jerseys. Like it's all just so that you can consume, all just so that you can support them, all just so that you can be involved in the buying and supporting of this system, which is like the system of that team or that sport or whatever it is, which is in the greater context of the entire world system that we all cooperate in, which is just money. It's just money.
Mhm.
And so we listen to other people, or we thought ourselves like, oh, there are other people who made a difference in this world. Look at Martin Luther King Jr. Look at Gandhi. Look at Mother
But
Teresa.
nobody talks about Senior. What did he do?
What does that mean?
I don't know. I'm just,
Okay, Senior.
hold on. Just real quick. I know you had a point, but I just love challenging these points with people, man. So you got to get those triggers going. What did Martin Luther King Jr. really do?
This is what I'm talking. This was my point.
Oh, sorry.
Let's go for it. Let's go for Mother Teresa as well, because
Oh,
Bitch. No, okay.
seriously though,
really, I remember we were in what was it? Where was that resort we were at? Not the last one, the one before that.
Punta Cana?
Dominican, yeah. And we were having lunch. I remember, and there was, I won't say who it is, obviously, but I started talking about Mother Teresa. They did not like that, man. They were like, I could tell they were visibly like upset about it.
good. They should know. Like
Yeah.
if you're not aware, there's photos of Mother Teresa with I don't know how to pronounce her name, Ghislaine Maxwell's father. Like,
Oh, really?
yeah, like they had from what I gather, some relationship, right? And so like if you're thinking like, oh, that's totally normal, and you're also thinking that she had no connections, no money, like you are fucked.
Yeah, she probably was bringing in lots of money. But here's the question. So, because somebody might say, oh, but what are you talking about? Mother Teresa, she was such a saint and all this great stuff.
You know how
right?
much power she had?
Well, but okay, but here I'm saying, like, why is it that people think she was so great?
Because they think that she was like helping poor people and like ending their suffering, when her whole thing was like she like was actually encouraging their suffering. Like I don't think people realize people would come to Mother Teresa who were in dire need of like medical attention and shit like that, and she believed that suffering was part of the like, I don't know, forgiveness or getting to heaven or something.
There's a book called Varieties of Religious Experience by William James, right?
Okay.
And it's all about all these different people who did all these extreme things to try to become one with God. It's like if you think about like taking ayahuasca, for example, is sort of an extreme thing to try to become closer to.
Yeah, he used to do nitrous oxide or whatever that thing is.
Jesus.
William James.
William James, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. So, but my point is, he was talking about the saints. He wrote about all these different saints and so forth, right? And monks and people like who they'd like whip themselves, and they'd wear these things called hair shirts, which was like, it had like this like itchy shit on the inside, so you're always uncomfortable, and it's like driving you to the point of like basically clearing your mind out.
Driving you to the point of like not wanting to be here, just
Yeah, it's
avoiding
like it's
life.
like there's all kinds of psychology he goes into about it, but it's like that sort of, if I can either prove myself or prove that I don't care about this physical world, whatever, it's like I can become one with God, right? And so Mother Teresa was very much in that line of thinking of like suffering is what brings us closer to God. So suffering itself is like noble.
Right.
So people didn't go there to be cured. They went there to like suffer and die.
Right.
Right. And so you might think, oh, but she had the right intention. Like, I know somebody's going to think exactly that thought. Like, yeah, but she really did want to help. So like, they'll kind of like overlook all of that,
Yeah.
not realizing she was a fucking psychopath. You understand? Just like the Pope.
Mhm.
I don't care what his intentions are. The guy's a psychopath.
You know, hang on. Wait.
Oh boy.
You know, those guys at Jamestown, they had the right intentions.
Yeah.
Okay. They wanted everyone to go on the ship. You know, it was coming. So they all drank. Okay. A little Kool-Aid. Never hurt nobody. Okay. A few people, whatever. But they had the right intentions.
Is it Jonestown? Is James?
Jonestown, whatever. The
Jonestown.
fuck it is.
Well,
You know,
that wasn't a spaceship.
you
Yeah,
know
that
the
was-
thing.
That was Heaven's Gate. You guys are mixing up your cults. I
Listen.
know-
Oh yeah, let's set this straight.
Okay,
I know
wait,
a thing
let me-
or two.
I'll set the record straight. So this one's self-perfected.
I've seen it because I got to figure out where they went wrong. So I got to correct all that error. Right?
Right.
But the point is, like, if you think that a person who is justifying people in poverty and suffering, if you're looking at that in any way and feeling like good about it, you really have to look at yourself honestly. And I'm willing to bet if you really look at it really clearly, there's a point within you where it's like you're getting off on it. Does that make sense? Like,
Explain it more.
it's like you're,
You know, the way Katie described it was really good in terms of like when you get into a fight with somebody or you're angry at somebody, there's like this little thing inside of you that's like I'm upset, like, you know, I want to feel better, right? But it's like inside of you, you're like I kind of like this anger. I kind of like being upset. I kind of like this thing.
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side of it, it's like because of the story that I have in my head about this symbol or person or whatever, it's like when you say get off on it, it's like when I think about that, I'm like,
yeah.
oh, but like she did this thing and it was so amazing. You just like go into this fantasy and all this stuff. Like you forget what the fuck is going. You're just like, oh yeah.
And then even beyond that, then you go, but there's people like in the world like Mother Teresa and they're helping the world. Not realizing they're actually the most fucking evil.
Yeah.
That's going to be a hard pill for a lot of people to swallow. But you start really looking into it and you're self-honest. You look at it and you realize it's not changing anything. And you look at the reality of what she did.
Mhm.
Especially when you start going into all that's like you were kind of alluding to, right? There's
Yeah.
really cool, there's like a few cool documentaries you can watch just to expand your perspective about it, right? But even if you don't watch a documentary, because you might think, oh, it's trying to misrepresent, just look at the starting point of the person. Look at her own writings. Like, look at what she actually said and did.
Oh, you got to be able to read for that.
But I mean, think about it. Like, if your idea of making a difference is I'm going to run a fucking place where people who are sick and dying can come and we can pray for them. Because does anyone under the impression that it was anything other than that? Was it a hospital?
No.
Okay. All right. Because you would think, why don't they just take people to the hospital? Like, was she running like this amazing hospital? No. It was just a place where you would get prayed and all this bullshit. But they're not praying for you like, oh, please get better. Please get better. It was more like okay, imagine you're like, suffering gets me closer to God. Okay. How can I surround myself with the most dramatic images of suffering possible to put myself into the most extreme state of like being absorbed and engulfed with like suffering?
Oh fuck.
That's what it is.
Bring
It's
out
no
your
different
dead.
than, like some fucking dude doing some weird magic ritual with like devil symbols everywhere and shit like that. Like they're trying to hype themselves into a state where it's like they feel like they're transcending into another level of consciousness. That's literally what she was doing. It was taking all of this suffering and using it as a way to psych herself up into feeling like she's like,
Okay, do Martin Luther King next.
okay, hold on. Think about a
Definitely got to
person.
hit on Gandhi too.
What do you think about a person who is like, I just want to have sex with super hot supermodels?
Hey, I know my boy when I hear him.
I don't understand the reference, but okay.
Oh, MLK. I thought we were going there already.
Oh, I'm not there yet.
Oh,
no.
okay. Never mind. Sorry.
And I have a dream.
Yeah.
Really hot, beautiful women.
But no,
All right,
yeah.
all right.
No,
Spoiler
but
alert.
hear me out for a second. Here, there's a point I'm trying to make here. what is the average person, if they're being just like what's normal and right to think, what would they think about a guy who's like, I just want to fuck supermodels all day. I don't care about how they feel. I just want to fuck them and like leave them on the curb and get another one, and it's a hotter one every night.
What a womanizer. Like that guy, he's like,
But like, what is that person after within themselves?
oh, just a feeling.
It's like, I want to feel on top of the world and just so amazing and great, right?
Right.
Now imagine that Mother Teresa was looking for that same exact experience, but symbolically it was union with God, transcending this very limited feeling of my life on earth. And I want to go to that next level of like feeling amazing, but I've just defined it within the vocabulary of I'm getting closer to God. Because how do you imagine she thinks she would feel when she's with God?
Poked out, blissed out.
Like on top of the world. Yeah.
Ecstatic. Just like this other guy over here who's fucking the models is feeling like he's trying to get that ecstasy, that feeling of like just amazing
I'm a
height
king.
of like everything.
Mhm.
It's the same exact thing. But why do we judge this? But over here we judge that. We don't judge that. And we act like, oh, that's such a great thing over there. How is it any different than the king sitting on the throne and like being like, worship me?
Hmm.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's hard for people to think of it like that. But if you start to break that spell that's on you about it, you'll realize I'm actually glorifying this person because they're representing being the elite of something.
Hmm.
Like Mother Teresa is like an elite level of just like, it's how is she any
Charity.
different than Einstein or Steve Jobs?
Yeah.
Like they're this elite level of like, I can never be that.
Yeah.
It's just her little niche is suffering poor people in India.
Mhm.
Do you know what I mean? But it's the same sort of mentality. It's that same sort of trying to get to the height of some kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Have you guys ever heard of Adidas?
Adidas.
No,
You're just saying it the German way.
no, Adidas.
No.
I think he's still alive. You should look him up sometime. I read about him like in 2008 or 2007, right? I started reading some of his books, and he's like this dude who started his own cult, like on an island. But it's not really the way you would think of a cult normally. It's like he thinks he's like, okay, so there's like levels to enlightenment, and Jesus is like here, and he's like here.
Oh, okay.
So there's like different levels of enlightenment, and like each time there's like another higher level. And so he reached this highest level. So if you just sit in his presence and stare in his eyes, that is like you're getting it.
Sick.
Like there's
Oh, I
nothing
heard
really
about that
beyond
guy.
that. You just sit in his presence because he's at such that level.
Hold on, you said he was still alive? Let me find
I
out.
think so. You look it up, Adi Da.
Oh shit, dude. I
If they
think-
get in his presence, you just have to buy a ticket to get into the room.
And he goes into a lot of different names stuff, but he wrote a lot of books and stuff. And I was totally into it when I was younger, like because I was searching for that. Not like totally into it. It was like a week I read all his books. But you know what I'm saying? Like I went into it to like understand it, right?
Yeah. It's
But
kind
then
of
it's
like,
like, okay, but there's no way I'm gonna be able to do that. It'd be like if you studied about Steve Jobs and you got so obsessed with him and you were like, fuck, I can never invent an iPhone because he already did it. Fuck. What do I got to figure out? So it's everyone's trying to figure out that thing that they can do to put them on top of the world. You see what I'm saying? That's Mother Teresa. She's like one of those people that we look up to. Like they're so fucking amazing. Like they reach this level. The thing about what's his name? MLK,
MLK.
right?
forgot his name. What the fuck?
What's so special about the guy?
He was black. All right.
Like,
So,
okay,
and we are still technically in Black History Month. Okay.
Oh,
he was
Right there.
definitely a good speaker. Like I'm not gonna question that.
slayed
Yeah.
it.
And he had some cool points. So I'm not saying like who's this fucking dude? He's a loser. I'm not saying
Right.
that at all.
Right.
But this people, why do we have him as this symbol of like like did some of the things he do require courage? Absolutely. But not any more than anyone else in that time period who was like involved with civil rights movement and so forth. Like
Yeah.
why is he so special to us?
Because it's a point of like, first off, you can't do what this guy did. He was so great. Like it's whenever you grandize anybody, right? It's like they're so great, you can't do what they did. It's the same point of like Jesus. You can't be Jesus, right? Even though Jesus explicitly said, you will do greater works than I.
And people say, like, what's the purpose of following Jesus? To be like him. Well, just be like him. Well, you can't. He's the only one who can ever be perfect. We can only strive.
Fucking mind fuck, man.
That's
Fucking
like, you
mind
got the
fuck.
perfect excuse, man. Like, hey,
Yeah.
how come you didn't get all the way? Oh, well, I tried.
I tried, but you know, Jesus said you couldn't.
It's like, why not just stop trying?
And you can't read.
Say that you did the best. Like, what's the fucking point?
Because you can't read.
But okay, so all right, so any person that's like put on a pedestal, they're automatically like, our system says if they're on a pedestal, you cannot be like them.
Yeah.
And then the other thing is of why he's so special is like he just was an effective communicator.
Mhm.
And so he got a bunch of other people to do what he was doing. And another point was that what he was advocating for could be used by the system as like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah. You're not actually going to do anything. Like, great. Then we want to support that point. Yeah. He fought for equality and everything, but the fight's still going on. It's still going on. You know, you're not ever going to get there. We still got to fight. And so it can be used then to like energize all these people who it's that point of activism, right? It energizes people who would normally be the people to actually make a difference. But now they've just put all their focus into this thing that's not actually going to make the difference. And they waste all their energy and efforts and focus on that. And then nothing changes. And so the system gets to remain. And I'm saying it that way because it's like, you could go into like the people at the top remain at the top, but it's not even really about that. It's really just the system itself surviving and continuing on. And that's the main difference I think that we have versus anyone else is like anyone who's vocal right now is like the people at the top need to change and all this shit. It's like, no, it's all of us. And it's the system that needs to be changed inherently. And
What did he accomplish though?
like actually,
Yeah.
ended segregation.
But isn't it today, if you were to read the media and so forth, we're in the
Worse.
most racist fucking time that's ever existed.
It is worse. And I can agree with that actually. I can agree with that because if you look at the like statistically, just go by the numbers for Black Americans, they're worse off than they were when before all this happened, like in the 1960s, let's say. Like you look at
So you're saying
fatherless homes and-
after segregation ended.
yeah, I'm saying it's worse off now than before segregation ended.
So
So what did he
MLK
accomplish?
actually accomplish?
But that's what I'm saying. That's the point that I'm making as why he's so special in our system, because he represents number one. You can as I'm trying to just Drake, you're saying too much here.
Gotta balance it out, dude.
That's not like an official Zoom background, is it?
What do you mean? It comes
I
with
was
it
like,
when
I'm
you-
just
when
wondering.
you
like,
upgrade.
that's just a picture of the
Recommended
Zoom
for-
No,
background.
no. When you upgrade to the pro version,
That's right. That's right.
nah. that's
But he's so special. You can't be like him and actually make a difference, for one. But two, this is what making a difference looks like. So just spend all your energy doing that. And three, it actually helps fuel the system. It doesn't actually. So it's just like, and I think that's the best part about it is we talked about previously on some podcasts about how what you learn about a virus in school, it's like you just get this much, just enough so that when a virus is talked about, you're like, oh,
Same thing with civil rights.
same thing, same exact thing. This is what you're given. In the month of February, we talk about Martin Luther King Jr. and Rosa Parks, and this is what civil rights is. But it's not actually understanding what rights are, like what it means to even be human. Like, why do you even have to talk about civil rights? Like, let's just talk about being human and providing for everyone their fucking necessities, not like, oh, we accommodate people. That's what the fuck civil rights has become. It's just like, we accommodate people. That's not fucking
We
doing
look at
anything.
all of the fucked up consequences of mental instability, and then we just make sure nobody kills each other. That's basically all it is. But the accommodation point is pretty good because it's like, whatever your mental delusion is, we'll accommodate that.
Right.
We'll tell everybody to be nice to you.
Right.
It's like I was telling you guys earlier with Max, like when he was playing with those kids and they were playing rough with each other, and he was like, oh, they're playing rough. I was like, go play rough with them. Go wrestle them. Right. And he was like, at first hesitant. Right. And then he did it. I didn't force him to do it, but I kept supporting him. Right. Instead of being like, hey, can you guys stop playing rough? Because my son, he's not really used to that. And all that. Like, no, go play rough. It's okay. It's fun. Like you always wanting to do it at night when we're playing with Seneca and Katie, you know, at bedtime. And I said to him, you know how we're saying be gentle with Seneca? It's because she's a lot smaller than you. These boys, you can be rough with them. They're 2 years older than you. You can jump on them and they'll play with you. It's okay. They'll understand. Right. So it was like a new experience for him. But instead of it being like, and it, like, for example, the father was like, hey, he told the boys, he's like, hey, don't be rough with that kid because he's not your brother. And I said to him, it's okay. I'm okay with it. And he was like, oh, all right. And I said, because he doesn't get to do that a lot, right? Because he's not usually around other boys, you know, his age or older. But my point is, instead of it being like, let's just take your weakness and make everybody else adjust. It's like, why don't I support you to become stronger within that point? Not being afraid of jumping on and being thrown on the ground and stuff like that, you know, but that's also vocabulary. Right. And another thing too, is, you know how you're the one who first told me about this. Then I got that autobiography. It's not technically an autobiography, but you know, from Martin Luther King.
Oh yeah.
But maybe you could talk about that too, because I didn't know this until you told me about it. Like what actually, if there's anything to really take away from him, it's this point.
Oh, that he went to like college when he was 15 years old.
Yeah.
Like, dude was freaking educated. Like I didn't know this before. And this is what I'm saying, as far as like, you go to school and you learn about Martin Luther King Jr., all this shit. But like, how come I didn't know, or I wasn't taught, that he was highly educated? The kid was a genius. Like, he was reading a lot, and he knew going into college at 15 years old, he already knew that he wanted to do something about segregation in the South. And not only that, while he was studying, he would, on his own, select books from different philosophers, and he would read about their philosophies and see, oh, could this work in the context of what I want to do? And he would basically, he's opening the book, he reads it, he thinks about it, he extrapolates it, he's able to see, oh, these are these points of this person. And in the given context of what I have in front of me, how would that play out? And that's how he eventually found, Gandhi, because he was actively doing this on his own. Nobody was giving this to him. Nobody was, there wasn't school like, hey, Martin, you got to go do this. No, that's not what
your assignment. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like,
but the point is he could read.
He could read.
And he read a
really
lot.
effectively.
And so that informed his ideas. So when people hear about his speeches, it wasn't just like he was just magically gifted at talking. He may have had some talents, but he was also very well read and could utilize that as sort of reference material, so to speak, to then build speeches and things like that.
Right.
You know, versus like somebody who, you ever seen these kids where they can preach? You know what I mean? These little kids, and they can do a whole thing like, and God said, you know, and like that whole thing. That's kind of, I think, how people just imagine Martin Luther King. He was just a preacher.
Because
go ahead.
Because people honestly believe that it's just like some kind of being or spirit or like Holy Ghost or whatever is coming through you so that you can then do that. They don't actually understand it is a point that is developed. Like, take for instance, Joel Osteen, however you feel about the guy, right? He has developed his church to that point. Like, he went to school for production. So he knows like the camera angles and all of that stuff. Like, if you go to that church, you will see the production value in there. Like, he's developed that point so that his church is that mega church that it is, right? It's all these people. It's not just, oh, just beam down from the sky, you're lucky and all this shit. Yeah, there's, you know, genetics and all that, but it is a developed point where people specifically focus on it. Like you can look at Bill Gates, right? It's like he developed learning to code and do that. Everyone.
The difference is the average person is not pre-programmed to be able to learn that shit.
Right.
That's the difference. So when we talk about, oh, it's developed, like we're saying, oh, just go out there and learn it. You're not pre-programmed to do it. Like Bill Gates got lucky. Joel Osteen got lucky. Martin Luther King Jr. got lucky. They stand out because most people never have an opportunity to integrate with the ease information that they could.
Right.
That's why we keep bringing back to the point of you can now with TechnoTutor take that and develop your vocabulary and excel within the point.
That's the point that Asif's making, is that we're not special. Like back then, yeah, all those people were special in the context of they had that available to them, but now we all have this available to us.
But isn't it fascinating the way the story is with MLK? They leave that part out about him being a scholar, basically, in essence, right?
Yeah.
Because of course you don't want that to be part of the conversation if you're wanting to maintain power and control over the masses, because clearly it's like fascinating. If you want everybody to be equal and you want civil rights, instead of telling the government to enforce it, why don't you just educate everybody to the level he was at?
Right.
But they would never go to that point, because then it's like, well, now you're actually freeing people. And of course there wouldn't really be an actual practical way to do that.
Yeah.
Right? So it's funny because once you look at, you know, it's interesting because you brought up that point about how like Black Americans, their standard of living has gone down.
Yeah.
Certain aspects of it, right?
Yeah.
But that's the case with everybody.
That's
I don't know about incomes per se, but my point is if you look at reading levels, education, and so forth. So it's a lot of times I notice on the conservative side, they try to argue that it's the civil rights movement that actually created this problem. But I think it's more like, look at the civil rights movement as a way of just, it's like making people feel like there's progress.
Yeah.
And there really wasn't actually any progress.
Right. Yeah. It's like, it's quelling that within them of like, there's something wrong, you know,
and that's something where you see on the progressive side of politics, I can see where they're coming from, where they're like, no, everything is still racist. Everything is still fucked and everything. It's like, yeah, that's true. But even then they still miss the fundamental points.
Yeah.
Because it's still this approach where you're looking to the government to just do everything for everybody, but not looking at where the real root of inequality lies. That's the problem that I see with that. So it's like when you take someone like Martin Luther King Jr., everybody hears the "I Have a Dream" speech and everything playing, and I want a world where, you know, people aren't judged by their color of their skin and so forth. And it's like, well, when you say someone's judged by the content of their character, where does that come from?
Where does character come from?
Yeah.
That comes from your environment. Yeah.
But it's like, okay, you're Black, you're white. Okay. I'm not going to judge you based on that.
Okay.
So what should I judge you based on?
What I actually do.
Why shouldn't I judge you based on your skin color, but I should judge you based on your character?
Because one, theoretically, you can change.
Right. But can you actually change your character? According to what people know? Like, where does your character come from? If your dad was an abusive alcoholic and beat your mom and molested your sister and you and everything, like, you're going to be fucked.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you should be judged based on that?
No.
You see my point? It's like people don't really see, okay, well, so then anybody who's judging anyone, you're just judging them.
Yeah.
Instead of looking at, well, what's the actual inequality? Where is the problem occurring? It's occurring at the level of education, which doesn't mean school, as we have talked about many times. A lot of times people try to, when they hear education, they immediately think school.
Yeah, they just go like,
everyone
can't have the same private school.
Like
Yeah.
It's like if a parent is abusing their child, they have a low education.
Yeah.
I don't care if they have a PhD.
Yeah.
Right? If they're not supporting their child to be effective in this world in a way that doesn't harm other people, that parent has a low education.
Yeah.
They don't know how to do it. How many people with PhDs put their kids in daycare?
Yeah, exactly.
Too many.
Many.
Too many. Like
Too many.
it's I'm looking at like just that point of being judged on the content of your character. That's the same point that we're making, or we were making earlier in this episode, of having the purpose, right? Knowing what the purpose is, and then your character should be how committed to that purpose. Like
Yeah.
Are you actually doing it, or would you just allow for everyone else to suffer?
Isn't there only one best character?
Yeah.
You see what I mean? Because now it's like everyone is tiptoeing around everyone's gender identity, et cetera,
Mhm.
as if that's your character.
Mhm.
When in reality, your gender identity doesn't really so much matter, your expression or whatever, as much as are you going to do what's best given in a
Right.
particular situation.
Right.
But
Mhm.
but that's not even a part of the discussion. That's a nice mug, by the way.
Oh,
By the way, just a quick product interlude. Got my hat. Right, finally.
Looks really nice.
Got this one.
Hey.
Also really nice.
Worth the wait. All right. So I was not sure which one I wanted to wear today, but I don't know. I really like this one. I mean, I like both hats. They're both nice hats, but I just really, something about this one really speaks to me.
Don't forget to subscribe, like, share this video.
Like,
Leave comments.
I just really like it. All right. So apparently the reason why it took me a while to get it was just more a technical thing. So that shouldn't happen to most people if they order.
Yeah, it actually ships really fast now. We figured out.
Because once that was sorted out, it got here really quickly. But yeah, I really like this hat. So, and the thing is, I don't, not that I have a problem with it, but I don't actually benefit at all from anyone buying the hats. So that's by design. So my point is, I'm really legitimately like the hats. So don't buy the shirts, don't buy anything else, just the hats. That's it. So yeah,
you
Very
know,
expensive.
how many people have you guys talked to that they're like totally on board what's best for all this stuff? Right up here. And they've got a platform that they're working on that's going to change the world because it's going to make it so that artists can connect with their consumers easier. And they got a platform that, you know, this country is going to be able to get clean water and that's going to change the world. Or they're developing an app that, like, okay, I want you guys to imagine this, right? Imagine coming up with a purpose for yourself when you're fucking 5 years old, 13, 18, when you're just totally self-interested, all this stuff. And then you have this realization of, oh my God, I can't just focus on myself. I have to do what is best for everything in existence and not change what you're doing. Just still thinking that, oh, I just keep doing the same thing as before.
Yeah. It's delusion.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
If you don't understand starting point, if you don't understand principle, this will seem uncanny, like really peculiar as to how this works. But the reason that I originally brought up Mother Teresa, MLK, Gandhi, all that stuff, is because this system has developed over time, kind of like your ego, where you can try all these different ways of thinking that you got out of it and let go of your ego, all this stuff, and then it'll bend you over and fuck you in your ass because it knows everything about you. It is so advanced. It is so complex. It's so layered that just when you think you've got it figured out, you still don't do anything. Because your ego or the world system inside of you that got put into you, it has this ability to make any realizations that you have totally irrelevant and your life doesn't change. In the same way that this world system outside that we all participate in it has this seemingly uncanny ability to make it so that whatever amazing, pedestalized, idolized accomplishments that we hold so sky high are completely fucking irrelevant. And this is the point. Like Martin Luther King Jr. was the racism guy, right?
Yeah.
And racism's worse now more than ever.
If our system is like inherently systemically racist, why would we even have a Black History Month? Now, I'm not saying it's not inherently racist. I'm saying it is, and we have a Black History Month. So that should tell you something. Do you see what I'm trying to say? Like the fact that it's holding these points up, the fact that Mother Teresa was a Catholic nun.
She's
tells you
the
something.
extremist that you're trying to like avoid displays, right?
Like she's in a religion. Like, oh, but she did so much good for people. It's like, how? Her whole point was just to get them to convert to fucking Catholicism before they died or whatever. It wasn't helping. Tell me one tangible fucking thing she did. Well, she helped people in a time of suffering. How? Did she cure their fucking cancer? What did she actually do? She sat with them and prayed. And like, can you see it's actually so self-interested? The thing about Martin Luther King is it's like a different point. Like, I don't see the same point. For Martin Luther King Jr., it's more like the system used him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he's a perfect human being. I know him, obviously, right?
What?
Well, he's not perfect. I'll tell you that.
I'm just saying that because you hear the rumors. Right? But what I'm saying is like it's a different thing. Like that was a person who was like, I'm going to stand up in this world. I'm going to speak up, even if it's a risk. Right? They still ultimately failed because they didn't change the system. That doesn't mean he's a failure. Well, it is, but I'm saying it doesn't mean that he's a bad.
He's dead
person.
now. So.
But I think I see it as fundamentally different than like a Mother Teresa.
Right, exactly. Where you're
I'm saying
convinced
Mother
that that's a
Teresa
good person.
sucks. Martin Luther King, pretty cool.
He tried.
Right? Martin Luther King, all right. Mother Teresa, that she's just fucking demon.
That's so perfect because I was like thinking to call this one Mother Teresa sucks.
Mother Teresa.
Yeah. Well, yeah, we'll talk about it. But
No,
so
I like Mother Teresa sucks ass.
the cool that's what I was thinking, sucks ass or licks ass or eats ass. Any of the above. One of those three. Or all of the above. Splashes. So here's the thing. If you're not really rich, right? My brother Kian loves quoting Cameron on the specific point of when he told both of us, if you don't have $150 million, you're fucking broke.
Yeah.
Like everything that you do is irrelevant. If you haven't figured that out yet, don't think that you're smart enough to figure out what would actually make a difference. But in order to understand what I'm saying right there, you have to acknowledge that Mother Teresa totally failed. Martin Luther King Jr. totally failed. Gandhi totally failed. JFK totally, whoever. Look at the state of the world. If you can't see results, then yeah, go fucking put your kid in the education system because you don't even care.
And by the way, Mother Teresa brought in way more money than that.
How much?
I don't know the exact number, but I know she was raking in.
Oh,
Yeah.
Which is like,
What number did you suggest, Cameron?
I don't know.
What?
What are you referring to, Jake?
Oh, way more than
We're talking
150
about how much
million.
she made.
Yeah.
He was
Oh,
saying
150
more
million.
than
Okay.
what you were saying. Yeah.
Yeah.
150 million. Interesting. Wow. Cool.
Yeah.
I'm
It
just-
probably all got funneled right to the church and they probably bought like fucking land with it. And,
Like you realize like policies were made based on Mother Teresa's influence.
like what?
Like governmental policies. Like she was communicating with presidents and shit like that, where she was just like, no, here's the stance we're taking. you're not gonna support this. You're gonna support this. And they'd be like, oh, yeah, Mother Teresa said to do so. Like she was used as a point of, all right, you're gonna go in here and you're gonna tell them to do X, Y, and Z. And if they don't want to do that, they're going to have some problems where they're not going to get the support from the church or they're not going to get funding from us or whatever the case was. She had a lot of fucking power and influence.
She comes in there and she's like, you're gonna do the deal or you're gonna fucking pay. And they're like,
Fuck.
I'm finding some places that say her net worth was over 100 million.
Okay.
100 million? Yeah,
Or
still.
close.
But that's back in like whenever.
And that's just one of these sites. There's,
Yeah.
And yeah, like back in those days, that the value of that money today is like, right.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
But you look at this stuff, it's never the story that people think it is.
oh yeah.
If you have a feeling about it and you don't know the details, that should right there be a red flag. You know what I mean? If you have a feeling about something and you don't know the details of it, and then you even go so far as to start defending, that's like people with the masks and everything. You don't really know. Did y'all watch? I watched a clip this morning with Tim Pool. He was talking to Mike Cernovich,
Okay.
and they were talking about the masks and everything. And they were saying how Fauci, he said, remember back in the day, he's like, like March of last year, he was like, don't even,
Yeah.
if you're wearing a mask, it's not
Healthy
gonna
people
be
don't
safe.
need to wear masks.
Yeah.
There was something else he said too, like,
He said you're just doing it to make yourself feel better, and then also if you're touching it and everything, it's actually a greater risk for you. Like
yeah, and there was something else he said that wasn't the mask itself, it was another point. But regardless, there was multiple points where it kind of like downplayed everything, right? And then it's like, well, now you should wear the mask. And then when they asked him about the 2 masks, he said, well, it kind of is common sense that 2 would be better than 1, right? But then later he said, well, but there's no actual studies or anything that says you should wear 2 masks. But then later the CDC says, yes, you should wear 2 masks. It's like I'm watching in real time how information's put out, and then you see the response, and they're almost like weighing like how many people are accepting it. Okay,
Yeah.
these people don't like it, these people do. Okay, cool. And then that's when they like, I don't know if that's how it works, right? But it's like even this point of don't trust the experts. What if there's a Chinese artificial intelligence that's deliberately putting all these information and getting things to go viral to make everybody question experts?
oh Jesus.
So that people in the United States and the West will lose faith in the system. So it'll start to collapse. So then the Chinese can come and take over.
Yeah.
Too hardcore.
It's probably happening.
Now, you could say, oh, that's crazy, we're all going to die. It's like, it's actually a good thing though, right? Because the system is fucked. The experts don't know what they're talking about. The only difference is whether we're going to educate people effectively so you don't need to have someone controlling everything. That's the difference. The fact that you can't be an expert on basic shit. Like, what is the average person an expert on?
Fucking Naruto and
Well, it's-
Friends.
And navigating like categories on Pornhub.
Probably.
They can become experts in things, but it's just stupid shit. Like, why aren't you an expert in how your body works in terms of, I always have to be careful because it's like making money, finances, it's still within the system of it's defined based on fucking lack. But the question you should be asking yourself is, regardless of that, why aren't we effectively experts in that?
Yeah.
So when you have the right purpose, which is the purpose, then you should be an expert in those things. Right? But basic stuff like nutrition and how to like make food and just basic stuff, people are not experts in that. Why? Because if you were, you wouldn't need to buy shit. So everything in the system is designed so that you are not an expert at anything. So you rely on somebody else. But the moment you start to look into it, like, okay, imagine a person having trouble in their relationship. Right? What's the first thing that they think to do?
Call a therapist.
Go to the marriage counselor, right?
Yeah. Yeah, counselor.
What are you imagining that person knows?
They've seen it all before.
You know what I'm saying? What are you imagining that person knows that you're going to go there and it's going to help you? And now, first day you go, right? But you don't even think about that, right? So you go to the therapist, right? What's the first questions you ask them?
So what's that you asked them?
Yeah, that you asked them.
Help us?
Can you help us? That's it.
Right. You don't go, okay, so can you tell me about your relationships and like, what are they, how did they
Yeah.
work out?
Are you married? Like,
Hold on. Do people do that?
no.
Why not?
Because they just want the fix.
They're not even thinking like, okay, is this someone I should listen to?
Yeah. Not even that.
Well, you got a degree from Boston University, so good enough. Like literally something that's affecting your own life that you're looking for a result in,
That's so.
You're not even doing the due diligence of, is this going to get me the result, or am I just going to show? At least I showed up. At least I tried. Like,
Yeah,
Right.
exactly.
You're
It's like
there of
that
your
effort.
own accord. No one's even forcing you to be there. You're not even asking the questions that would make sense to ask that you're going to get the result. So it's the same thing people do when they put their kids in school, right?
Uh.
They go to parent teacher conference, right? What's the first thing that parents ask the teacher?
So how's my kid?
What's he doing?
Yeah, it's like
They're not like, hey, so what's your educational background? What qualifies you to teach my child?
Do you have children? Like,
Yeah, like how many
How are
children
they doing?
turned into geniuses? Like how many people came from your classroom, went to Harvard? Like they're not asking anything like that.
right.
They're just like, oh, here's the teacher. Okay, I don't want to get in trouble. They're thinking that.
100%.
that is it.
100%.
Like, can you see the average person in this world is a fucking retard?
Yes.
Yep.
They're retarded.
Yeah.
The idea that you should even trust an expert or not is a retarded statement.
Mhm. Mhm.
Like, I'm an expert. How do you figure? Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, you're an expert. Okay, cool. What did you just tell me what to do? Just tell me. Like,
Yeah.
just because they said they're an expert.
Yeah.
Like, are there ever doctors who make mistakes? Are there ever doctors who are totally fucking incompetent?
Yeah.
So then how can you have this idea that you should trust experts? It doesn't even make sense. How do you know if you have the incompetent one or not? You know?
I just get lucky. That all happens to other people. It's like
Right,
that.
right.
And then you look at somebody like a Fauci type person. That person, you think they're more like competent or more political?
More political.
That's how they got in that position. Probably
And-
less competent, actually.
And also like so here's an interesting point is that because I've done this a few times, and Asif, I know you've done this as well, but like if you start challenging the expert in that way, the doctor or whatever, right? The doctor will like kind of push back on you, and they might say like,
Like, what,
do you
like,
want
why
the
are you-
results or not? Like,
Yeah, like, why are you questioning me? Like, that's not
Exactly.
what we're here to do.
Exactly. And so the fear there then, and this is like an inherent fear in basically anything that challenges the system, is that what you have can be taken away from you, whatever it is that you feel like you have. So like, even just like, for instance, people going to restaurants right now and like they recognize, because I've talked to so many people who are going to restaurants and I'm like, but it doesn't make sense. You're going to go in there with a mask and then you're going to take off the mask and like, what? And they're like, no, I get that.
Like in the hidden kitchen where they're preparing your food that you're gonna put in your mouth.
Right. They're not even wearing the
They're
mask.
never like scratching or coughing or doing
Right. Exactly. So it doesn't make any fucking sense. So many people know that. And yet they're still willing to do it and play along with it because they're afraid, oh, well, then I can't eat at this restaurant, or like they're going to take that away from me. They're going to take restaurants away. They're going to take, my ability to make money away. Like I get why the employees are doing it, because they're like, I could lose my livelihood.
Yeah.
But then also when you're challenged with someone in a conversation, especially if you're in sales or something where like, any particular person could be a prospect for your business. It's like, you might not challenge them or you might just acquiesce to whatever it is that they are saying that they want or do, just so that you can maintain your livelihood, maintain money coming in. And I guess to go along with all of this is that we can't rely on the system, right? And so here's the cool thing that I see within this is that regardless of who you are, this is good. So we're talking about like the purpose, right?
Yeah.
And actually having the character, the best character, meaning doing what's best for all, in spite of wherever you may find yourself. Another way to say that is standing up for life, standing up for what's real. And in every moment, the cool thing about this life is that you're going to be challenged in every moment to actually stand up for life, or see if you will stand up or not. Right. And then within that is the consequence of standing up and of not standing up. The consequence, or your perceived, like what could possibly happen, is everything could be taken away from you. Right. But if you don't stand up, everything will be taken away from you, for sure. Right. And on top of that, you have to become someone who has developed themselves so that if or when everything is taken from you, it doesn't fucking matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that you still hold the principle and you still do what's best anyway.
Yeah, because that fear of it being taken is like the guarantee that it's going to be taken.
Mm-hmm.
Either we stand up regardless, or we do it when the thing is taken away. But then it's a lot harder, isn't it? But you have to walk without that fear of it happening. Imagine how many people are actually afraid of that. So that's the that's the thing that is holding our world back, is that everyone has the fear of, if I do what's best, I will lose.
Mm-hmm.
You see? And that's why I don't know if we were going to put this part at the beginning of the podcast or not, or this episode, but that we were talking about things being a game, right? And it's like a game where everybody wins. That's the game I want to play.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, what's the point? Now, I mean, there's contexts where you're playing a game and part of the fun of it is you're trying to win and improve and so forth, right? But people say, well, if there was no winner and loser, it wouldn't be fun, right? But do you ever played a game like how fun is Go Fish? How much fun is that?
It's fun.
Is it really? You play it for like every day for 3 hours?
No, that's not that fun.
You get bored real fucking fast, right?
Yeah, for 5 minutes.
But it's like, oh, but there's a winner and a loser. And it's like, yeah, but there's there's nothing interesting about it.
Yeah.
So it's not the winning and the losing that makes it interesting per se. Do you see what I'm saying? That's not the fundamental point that makes it interesting.
It's so
That's
funny
just-
because saying the phrase in a game, let's make it interesting, means to put money on the line. You know what I mean?
Oh,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah.
the reverse, right? It's like, let's make it interesting. Let's bet on it, because that's what makes the game interesting.
all right, here's a perfect example, right? Sex.
Hmm.
Hmm.
Is it only fun if there's a winner and a loser?
Yes. And I'm
That's
a
a great
winner,
point.
baby.
Because the only time there's a loser is when there is no sex. Right? Like that's the only time there's a loser in the equation.
Right.
Do you see what I'm saying? Like that's a perfect example where it's like it's best for both people if they both win. Like why does there have to be a winner and a loser?
Yeah.
Hmm.
When it comes to just like having a picnic, is that fun?
Yeah.
Does there have to be a loser at the picnic? Like, why does there have to be a loser?
You don't get to sit on the blanket.
And here's another question: why do we generally play games?
To have fun.
Yeah, but you can have a picnic and have fun, right?
to win, to be competitive, to prove ourselves. To
Do you remember when you guys were here? Was it last year? I guess this past year. At
Yeah.
the end of the year, right? And we played that. What was it called?
Or that
keep
bomb.
talking and nobody explodes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it.
Like there was no winner,
Well, we
That's
were
true.
either all winners or all losers.
That's true.
right? But there was no like you have to lose and I have to win.
Right.
yeah.
Right.
We were just all having fun together, and it was just a way of interacting and practicing communicating and developing that point.
Yeah.
Sure.
So why does there have to be a winner and a loser? Right? But the problem is the biggest game, the most consequential game in the world, which is the money game, there has to be losers. That's the
Yes.
way it's designed. That's not, and this is the problem I have when people talk about, well, the problem in the system is nothing is backed by gold anymore. So money isn't real. How would that change anything? You're going to give gold to everybody? Like, how is that going to fundamentally change anything?
People are still going to want to accumulate gold, and in order to do that, you have to take it from somebody else.
Right.
Yeah, it's like,
Doesn't change anything.
oh, but it's valuable because it's scarce.
Yeah.
Like,
No.
No, don't worry. We dealt with that one last time.
I was about to go on a 2-hour rant.
About relative scarcity.
Maybe we should wrap it up kind of because I know, Mitch, you have somewhere you need to go, right? But
So, man, if I just want to make one thing clear, The reason why you want to do your own thing and have your own purpose is because you're trying to feel special.
Trying to win.
Like, just take a moment. If you have your own thing that you want to do, you're just trying to be special. But there is a fucking 1,000 other people who can do what you do. If you want to be special, join us now. Because nobody else is doing this. And what I mean by that is you can be the person in your community who actually stands up and starts living by principle, where just like in our lives, people are like, damn, like you guys are different. And the whole time I was like trying to do a bunch of bullshit to feel special, and I just never felt special. Now I don't care about it anymore. And everyone's like, whoa, you're the guy. It's like, you be the guy, like you be the girl, like you stand up, right? So the point is, in you wanting to be special, you're going to fuck it up totally. The system is going to take you, bend you over, and fuck you like your ego does. And it's going to make everything you do irrelevant. You're going to die and be like, oh shit, like I wasn't special. What I would suggest is let go of your bullshit and start living by principle, and you will be among the first human beings that live by principle. You will be among the first human beings that get to the next evolution of mankind. That is something noteworthy. That is something noteworthy. So in your desire to be unique and special, you're going to crumble. If you let go of that and you're willing to be part of a group, you're going to be part of the group that changes the fucking world. So don't choose a purpose. Choose the purpose. And if you didn't realize yet, the reason why a purpose won't work is because the system will take it and make it irrelevant. That's why the purpose is change the system itself, so that no matter what you do, you're provided for.
Be more specific. Be more specific with what the purpose is.
Go ahead.
The purpose is do what's best for all. Do what's best for all life. And we do that by changing the system to become best for all.
And we do that through first educating everybody, so that, like we were talking about, those points inside you, that you need to have those points inside you so they can connect, and then you can connect that with the world. We're very specifically saying educate everyone and put all of the points inside you so you can interact with the world and make the connections within, so then you can effectively operate. And then as we go into politics, as we change the laws, as we build these networks, as we change the media, that's how we implement what's best for all. And that's frankly winning. Like, that's the win that we're all going for. And we're all on the same team. That's team life. And that is the only, you can call it a game if you want, because you can quantify it and you can get points basically by sharing this and spreading this. But it's not a game because it's fucking life. Like to put it as a game would be downplaying it and not giving it the weight that it deserves.
The process of changing the system is a game, meaning you can approach it in a game-like way and measure it and quantify it, but life itself is not a game. So you put yourself into that game. Do you see the difference? The problem is if you play a game with life, so then it's like you're playing a game with other people's lives. That's what the problem is, right? Mm-hmm. So take your life seriously, put your life into the game, which is the system, but then in a way that's best for everybody, right? That's the real point. And, check out these hats, right? Maybe I shouldn't promote them because eventually, well, I guess you're not going to run out of them. I was going to say, I don't want other people to get them because then I
put
would
it to the test. Yeah.
Right?
You got to keep it scarce.
We can print them on demand so everyone can have a hat.
No. We need scarcity. That's why they're valuable.
You see the problem. It's like you have to lie, or not lie. I mean, if there actually was a limited quantity, you could say that. But I'm saying even that there's like a psychology that if you want the person to buy, you have to say it's limited or whatever, right? Now, is that something we created, or is that just the rules of this quote game that we're in? right? So you have to look self-honestly at when you need to play the game, right? And are you playing the game in a way that's best or not, right? If you're going to sell hats, you might as well sell hats. Like what? Like I'll tell you why I like wearing this hat, because it's like no matter what I'm doing, it's like I'm promoting what we're doing. It's like I'm just waiting for someone to be like, "What is that Team Life on your hat?" Now I'd be like, "Oh, it's people that are doing what's best for everybody. We want to change the system." Like they're like, "What the fuck are you talking about?" And then you can talk about it.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a better elevator pitch, but I'm just saying the point is to have like a way of communicating that, expressing that. So it's like for me, I just have like Technotutor shirts. I got Team Life hats. I got Self Perfected shirts. I don't have to wear other shit anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So I just think that's really cool. It's like, why not make our own stuff, right? That represents what we're really all about. Right. So that's my thing on the hats. Get the
Yeah. So
Let them know, Mitch.
with it,
Let 'em
y'all know where to
boy.
find us.
Let them know. boy.
Self-perfected.com.
Come on.
If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
Leave a bunch of comments.
Oh,
too
Let
many.
us know.
Leave too many comments.
Yeah.
So many, dude.
Make us work.
You give us the thumbs up or the thumbs down. We're cool with it.
Either way.
We don't mind
And-
the negativity.
And join the group, because what the fuck else are you doing with your life?
Seriously.
Join the group and actually get on the front lines of the game with us. It's more fun than anything I've ever done. Even the coolest video game or the coolest whatever the fuck it is nothing compared to even one of the average days of what we do. And then you have some days where, like last Friday, someone, I won't say their name, but they told me a story of how they literally got themselves out of a major amount of debt. And this guy's got kids. And that forever changed the entire legacy of his family.
Yeah.
That's the kind of shit that we're talking about.
Oh, I'm
It's
listening.
so much more.
Oh my.
And he wants to do what's best. So he's not
Yes.
just about himself.
Yes.
The only reason he was able to do that is because he started doing what we're doing.
Yes.
Exactly. Exactly.
That is the power of team life right there. And that's the power of self-perfected. And so join us, share it, keep spreading it, and we'll see you next week.
And get the hat. See ya.